Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. It seems like mobile service is the new Wild West, and we can all relate to all the things happening in our industry. Mobile is a big part of that. I want to welcome back the esteemed mobile service panel with Mark Mickens from ES3, Ed Roberts from Bozard Ford Lincoln, and Robert Stage with Stage One Mobile Diagnostic in Ohio. Gentlemen, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thanks for having us, Ted. It's great.
Thanks, Ted. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Ted.
You gentlemen have put mobile on the map. I don't know any other way to say it. I hear so much about it. I hear so much about this panel, and you've taken it a long way. And, here we are. Mark, we're at the end of January and coming into February now. And, I know you have heard a lot of the discussion as to how does a dealer make mobile work. Mark, I don't want to ask you how it pencils because I know you heard that question a lot of times, but I understand it requires a lot of thinking out of the box, and I want to talk to you gentlemen today about that. And Mark, if you don't mind, maybe I'll come over to you first because I know you've heard a lot about it.
And rightfully so. Any investment from a dealer standpoint, being a former dealer, I understand the question. Our particular rollout, the manufacturer we're working with, Mercedes-Benz. I'm involved in the rollout at a dealer level most of the time, and that's the number one question. And I certainly understand that. Whenever you're going to invest in something that you're really not sure what the return on investment is, that's always the big question. But we encourage people to think outside the box, to look at some things that have worked for other people like Ed and Robert. I use Ed and Robert as an example all the time in my travels because, Robert's doing it with just, not a manufacturer's customer. He's doing it with people. So the demand is there. I think that we've challenged the dealers and we've been able to help dealers with some really good foundational ways of going about it. It doesn't have to be, here's your very expensive truck and you're hiring a guy and let's go change some oil. It's really gone way beyond that. The particular manufacturer I'm working with right now, Mercedes-Benz, is rolling out. We'll have fully 8 rolled out models by the end of 2024 when it comes to EVs. And, the EV customer simply is used to having mobile service done on their vehicles at their home or office or wherever it is. And it's a big concern for this particular manufacturer on how they're going to capture new clients and how they're going to service those new clients, because it's not particularly somebody that's been a Mercedes-Benz customer, 100% of the time. So it might have been a customer of another EV product or a brand new customer to that market. So there's more to it than just out of the box how it's going to pencil. There's a big customer experience part of it that we're dealing with right now too, and the satisfaction rate of customers that do receive mobile service, the scores are markedly higher than they are normally, and that's math now. That's history. So we can point to that as a way too. But there are several different pockets that you can go out and you can make this work from a return on investment standpoint.
Ed, you're making it work now at Bozard Ford Lincoln. I know you get a lot of phone calls probably every single day. Talk to us about what you're seeing.
Mobile service is something that we have to embrace. And like Mark said a minute ago, it is a commitment. But it's a commitment that it's done with what if and why not, where you put yourself into a different mindset of why can't we do this? Because everybody that I talk to is, how does it pencil? And when we look at it from a pencil standpoint, we end up saying, okay, let's wait and see what everybody else does. And wait and see doesn't create progress. You got to create your own roadmap. But let's talk about, Mark mentioned that EV customers are used to mobile service. They're used to it because it's the only thing that Tesla offered for years. And it's about 90% of what they offer today. Some things have to go in. And that's because mobile service is easier to bring up to speed than it is to build brick and mortar and find ways to drive people to you. we're here to fill a need. We're here to be the Amazon of vehicle service, and where we can show up at wherever you're at. If you want a package from Amazon delivered to work, you get it delivered to work. If you want it delivered to your house, you get it delivered to your house. Same with mobile service. If you want me to come to your place of business and take care of your vehicle so that you never have to lose time at work and reorganize something else to bring your vehicle in and hope that you get out in time and hope that you can get a loaner car and all those things, I can come to you and take care of it, and you never have any downtime. But it's shifting to a different mindset. And is it all changes? It's however you want to build it. For us, we do some oil changes with it, but it's not our primary business. And our primary business is to prevent customers from coming into the store, because then it doesn't pull down on my service store capacity. It allows the flexibility to be able to do other things. I can handle more recalls because my customer doesn't have to interrupt their day. They don't get recalls done because they don't know that there's an issue. They don't feel there's an issue. Yes, they got this letter, says they need to come in, but their vehicle still operates and does what they need it to do. Well, sometimes when it's a safety concern, those things need to be handled before it's an issue, not wait until it's an issue. And I can go to those things and address those things on the front side rather than reactionary. And then just so many other elements that ties to that: retention, obsolescent parts. I can install SOP parts. I can go to them and take care of the defection items. For years, we talked about tires, batteries, and brakes for the defection items. When they need those items, the vehicle's out of warranty and they can go anywhere to get them done. That is correct. But the true number is 87% of the time when someone goes somewhere other than the dealer to get service, they never go back. Mm-hmm. Well, I can take care of those things from the beginning. They're never having to go anywhere. And if they don't have to go anywhere, then they don't have to worry about who's got the best deal on tires, who's got the best deal. It's about convenience, because their time is the most important element to them. And we can fit that in to where it doesn't take time from them. It just fits.
Ed, bring us up to speed. Late January, how many mobile units do you have now? And how many folks do you have assigned, to delivering mobile service?
I have 10 vans. I have 8 of them rolling. And with them, I have 2 people in each van. So that's 16 technicians. And I have 3 people behind the scenes putting it all together. This was the day after one of the storms we had late 2022. They was all rolling back in about the same time on a Friday. And I said, hey, this is a perfect opportunity. But take a look at this picture. This is more than just vans that I'm showing you. I'm showing you these guys after they've been a full day out in the field, and they still look very presentable, because they're not out tearing an engine apart. They're not out tearing a transmission apart. Those are not things. That's what we visualize when we talk about mobile service, but those are not things that we do in field. These are like the AC repairman that shows up to your house to service your AC. And with EVs, that's kind of what these guys do. They're coming in to service a piece of appliance. And yes, a car may not be ever been called an appliance before, but essentially everything that needs to be done to an EV can be done outside of the store. And these guys can go out and do it. And these things are equipped to do all kinds of stuff. You see some oil equipment there, but they can do absolutely anything within reason. And when I say within reason, I don't want to open up a transmission. I don't want to open up an engine in field. And that's why these guys still look very presentable at the end of their workday. So it's about, how can I make this work, rather than let me see how somebody else does this. Go make it happen. And there's the tire van that I talked about. I want to take care of those defection items before they have an opportunity to go somewhere else. I don't want them to find cords hanging out of them before we replace them. Beautiful.
Ed, you're doing so much in that mobile arena, and a lot of people look up to you. Robert, you have a different story. You had a very successful one with your stage 1 mobile diagnostic operation. Tell us what's happening. Talk to us about it.
Sure. It's still growing. I was talking to you on one of the other panels. At this year, I'd like to add another truck and another technician. It just continues to, keep going up. But I do want to say something to what Mark and Ed had just spoke about. The great economist, Dr. Thomas Sowell, when he talks about economics, he always says that you can think of economics strictly as a trade-off. It's all trade-offs. Everything's trade-offs. And even if you had your store was a loss leader, that portion of it was a loss leader, and your service gross and also your CSI went up, and everyone found out that you were performing this great service, it's still a win. I mean, it's not, you could say, even if it broke even at the end of the year, but your service gross was another $1 million, or if your CSI was, into the 960s, into the 970s, all of a sudden, it's like everyone found out about a great party that was going on and everyone was invited and then they all showed up. And that's really what the mobile service thing really does for a dealership or for myself. When I go out into the field, customers are excited to find out that they didn't have to go anywhere to have anything done to their vehicle. You can do it right there at their home, right in the garage even, or right there on their driveway. So, performing those services is just something that everyone really loves when you go out there. So it's kind of a no brainer, really. And I'd like to hear what the other guys have to say about that. Just that one point, even if you run mobile, if it's a loss leader, what's the downturn? There is no downside. It's all upside.
No, there's not. The immediate, when I was still in the store, the immediate reaction from someone was, "Oh, you can do that, and you can do that at my home," right? So it is a loss leader in some cases. You're correct about that, Robert. But I want to follow up on one thing that Ed had touched on, because it's something that we're challenging our dealers when the pencil issue and why issue comes up, and that's capacity. And we have challenged our dealers when we have these conversations to let's look at your capacity. Let's look at some of those repairs that aren't necessary to fill up your service drive, right? I mean, everybody's having issues with hiring technicians and hiring service advisors, and at that standpoint, but yet we have to keep bringing more and more in, and we're 3 weeks out on the simplest service. That's not servicing your customers, right? So if we can take some of those simple services out of your capacity each day, right, it actually increases, your efficiency in the shop on things that you have to do in the shop, as opposed to keep putting those things off because you're doing those small repairs that can be done on a mobile basis. Ed mentioned special order parts, recalls. All those things aren't necessary to come in and have a service advisor write them up, have them in your drive, have them in your parking lot, having to process them through the shop, and then the pickup and delivery process that goes along with it. It can be done in the driveway or at your business place, where you work. And so we challenge right at it, what's your capacity? What are your issues inside the shop? And how can mobile service alleviate those things? And guess what? It's going to increase your efficiency. It's going to increase your productivity, and that always falls to the bottom line. So that's how it would pencil. I mean, if we want to get back into that conversation. So the capacity issue and someone actually going in and doing calculations on how many bays, how many things, what your efficiency are in your brick and mortar shop will lead you to say, that's a pretty good idea. And it's not as big of an investment as if you had to go out and build more brick and mortar.
So let's talk about it from a different angle, but it all ties together with what both Mark and Robert are saying. In service, we've always kind of treated service as a reactionary tool. And really, that's us, because we can flip that around and make it a proactive tool. But we look at our VIN share and we say, okay, well, I run 30% of VIN share, and we run near 80%. But let's talk about what VIN share is for the audience that may not know. VIN share is the number of vehicles that are in your primary market area of your brand within 10 years old. How many of those vehicles do you service? And typically the national average is about 30%. That means that 70% of your customers are going elsewhere. And going back to that first thing that I talked about, with once they go somewhere else the first time, 87% of the time they never come back to the dealer. So that drives customer acquisition cost. And what I want to challenge you, because mobile service has been out for a bit now. Robert's been doing it for a couple of years. I've been doing it now. We're in our 8th year of doing mobile service. Mark's been involved with it for several years. But I challenge you, if you're questioning mobile service, ask your manufacturer for a dealer that's doing it well, or call Ted or call myself or call any of us on this call and ask who's doing it well, and then ask what their VIN share is. Because if we're retaining it, then I'm going to spend a lot less money for the acquisition of a new customer. And when I can retain them in service, I'm going to spend a lot less money in dollars of advertisement spent per new vehicle sold. So yes, like Robert said, there's the unmeasurables that you can't tie specifically to it, but there's things that you can tie specifically to it that does turn into dollars. And it's from the other side of it. It's being proactive rather than lose those customers and drop down to 30%, because we should all look at that as a failure. If we made 30% on a final exam in college or in high school or whatever else, we failed. But we don't look at it as a failure in our business today. And it is 70% of our customers are going elsewhere. And this is a true way to present it. Is it the reason why we're at almost 80%? No, it is an element of. But what if it's an element that picks up 5% for you? Well, if you pick up 5% of VIN share, that's almost 20% more. If you're running 30 and you pick up 5, that's almost a 20% gain in the traffic coming through your service department.
And think about that from this standpoint too. So we lost all that market share over the years because of the way we didn't react or be proactive in the market. You know, if you want to know from a manufacturer standpoint, what most of the manufacturers are looking at is, instead of a service department thinking that, oh, the EVs are coming, so it's going to shrink my service department, the manufacturers are not looking at it that way. They're looking at it that it's a recapture, actually, because of the technology, that the car should come back to your store. And part of that is going to have to be that you're going to have to go out to the customer if you want to capture that VIN share, right?
Absolutely.
So it's a different, it's a different approach, because what you would actually think would be, the shrinking of the service department at the dealership, it doesn't have to be that way. It should grow. Right?
So we have to do things to grow our VIN share, because what's going to happen, like Mark is saying there with EVs, is the frequency is going to drop. We're not going to see those EVs twice a year. We're going to see them once a year. Well, if it drops to once a year on those, and that's the only thing we work on, all we have to do is double our VIN share, go from 30% to 60%, and our traffic count changes. So the opportunity is there. Don't be afraid of what could happen. Go make something happen to where you could drive it into your service department and try to figure out how you can balance bringing more in.
Mark, Ed has just given us the new calculator on the math. All right.
And it is math. And
it is.
When you start making investments, it does get emotional, but I don't think anybody takes a look at the key part there that Ed Roberts is talking about, and that's VIN share. You have to know your area of responsibility and how you're penetrating it. And I think that's probably one of the least looked at math equations in our business, to show you what your capacity is and how you can grow that. It's yours. You had it at one time. Somehow you gave it away. And all due respect to Robert, I mean, Robert's in business because of that, right, Robert? I mean, you're not going to argue with that standpoint. Somebody bought a car somewhere that you're servicing now, right? So
exactly right.
And that's not going to change when EVs come out, because innovative guys like Robert are going to find a way to work on those cars, right? So Absolutely. There's a lot of opportunity for everybody.
And Robert needs those defections, and Robert can latch onto that a little bit, because he knows the ones that he goes out and services, they're not going back to the dealer.
No.
He falls right into that 87%. They are married to him forever.
Yeah. That's exactly correct. I'll spin off of that, and I'll just say that going over the year-end stuff that, in my own business, a couple numbers stood out to me. 3.2 average visits by the same customer. So that was pretty big. That's not typical in the industry. And another one was like $817.56 per RO. So my numbers were way off the last time that I'd shared those. I think I was around 350 to 400. It's about it's like 815. So those things really translate well. And my market share is 0.001%. I guarantee it. It's not very much. But like you said, those customers are loyal. They're not going anywhere else. They call me. I'm their guy. They don't want to talk to anybody else. It's me. And then the other thing that, come to mind while you guys were talking was sales. The other silo that no one ever talks about. Could you imagine if someone ran an actual survey of everyone and did a focus group, and how many people would say that they would rather come back to a dealership and buy a vehicle that offered mobile service? that offered the convenience factor that they don't have to leave and do anything. Like you said, like Mark said, you can have it done at your business. It could be repaired at your business. You don't ever have to do anything. It could be done in a parking lot. Could you imagine what the numbers would be on that? They would be, I mean, it'd be astronomical because no one wants to have to go. I mean, the sales process has been streamlined a whole bunch. So is F&I, but no one still wants, they don't want to have to go do that. Like you said, we're in an Amazon economy now. You know, I bought a book the other day and it took literally about 10 seconds to buy a book, and it's going to be dropped shipped at my door in like 2 more days. So we're, you know, if you're not doing mobile, you're way behind the 8 ball. I mean, Ed's been doing it 8 years, and you have to ask yourself, why am I not doing it? If you're in the industry, and you know, why are you not doing it? It's definitely the future. It has to, you know, it's here, it's now.
So
I
I
mean,
want to break that down a little bit, and because I kind of like to analyze things a bit. Our VIN frequency, the national average of VIN frequency is 1.8 times a year. That means that the customer comes in almost 2 times a year. For us, it's 2.1. But what I just heard Robert say is 3.2 times a year. Let's break that down a little bit. We look at a closing ratio here when we look a vehicle over with MPI, and we measure the closing ratio of each, well, all that stuff. But of all the ones that we don't close or whatever, we didn't overcome the obstacle, they didn't say no, they just said not with you. And what we've done is gave them a shopping ticket to go somewhere else. We said, okay, we got your car fixed. Here's some other things you need to do. They said no. They go down where it's convenient and get it done.
Then they came to me.
Exactly. And what I hear Robert saying is he fixed their vehicle, showed them what they needed to have done. They worked their budget out. They called him back and done those things with him. That's why his VIN frequency is up so high at 3.2. We would love to have everything that we recommend come back to us. And
Yeah, sure.
This is an opportunity to capture some of that.
Circling back to sales just a little bit from a dealer perspective, that, you know, some of the new EV customers that are coming into your showroom, you're probably going to be peeling off the original manufacturer at first. I mean, let's face it, you know, like, you know, maybe a fresher product, you know, Ford Lightning might be a Tesla customer, or, you know, or Mercedes-Benz EQS might be a Tesla customer. So I think you have to have the availability to say to that customer that you know, they shouldn't ask if you have mobile service. They should expect the fact that they're going to receive the same level or better level of service when they purchase an EV from you, right? Because they've already had that experience. And one thing Ed said in the beginning too, I was a service advisor back in the late 80s, early 90s. And we used to send our tire work to a tire store up the street because we were too busy to be tired.
Yes.
So, you know, the business and you know, kind of what's the number one, you know, business of all dealerships right now, right? Is to try to capture the tire business for good reason. So things change, I guess, is my point, you know, where, you know, why mobile service? Well, because you're going to be behind the 8 ball pretty quick if you don't.
Absolutely.
Robert, your thoughts? I love this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, you can beat the hair off of a dead horse. I mean, but that is the case. I don't know exactly what the number of dealerships that are doing service, you know, mobilely right now is, but from everything Ed said and everything Mark said, it's like, how do you not do it? I mean, it's kind of dumbfounding that people don't do it. And you know, my business came about during COVID, and I started seeing where, you know, all the dealerships started doing, we're going to do pickup, drop off concierge, we're going to clean your vehicle, we're going to do all these things. And I told myself, you know, I was doing consulting at the time, and the place I was consulting at literally shut down. I mean, it was in April, it was, you know, 2020. They shut completely down. I think I was there 4 hours that month. So it's like, what are you going to do? And literally because of COVID, you know, I'm doing what I'm doing because I said, well, if the dealer is going to do that much more, I can do one more step past that and actually just go to the place and fix the vehicle. So, I mean, like I said, it's crazy that someone wouldn't want to do this. Even like I said, even if it breaks even if you're negative 10 grand every year, you're still ahead in your CSI and your sales and your service gross. It's like, why would you not do it?
Ed, let me come back to something you said earlier in the panel. At the last Fixed Ops Roundtable, I believe it was, you gave us the phrase trip value. And you mentioned today that you've got a couple people coordinating this In addition to your team that's out or your teams that are out in the field, you've got some coordination and preparation going on. Ed, take us through a little bit of that, if you don't mind. Who are they? What do they do? And how do you go about that?
So I still do not advertise mobile service on our website because we keep it booked. And I have 8 rolling. I got 2 more that's ready to go in process, but I need people for it. And I'm building those people. We're growing them, and then we'll get those out in the first part of this year. But the other 3 that's behind the scenes, I have a parts person tied to them. I have an advisor tied to them. And then I have somebody else who'll do various different things, or kind of pick up the loose ends. But let's talk about what the advisor does for them. The advisor coordinates their day, and they coordinate it through some software, and they don't have to come into the store or whatever else. But if I'm going to see Ted to take care of something that we've talked about or whatever else, something that's come up or it's time for service, I know where he's going to be. I know when I'm going to be there. And now I can look at that, and I know the miles that's on his vehicle, and I can take things with me that I may find on an inspection on his vehicle. So I'm not only just going to him for that concern, I'm also prepared to take care of things that he may need. But also, he's 18 miles from me. And in that 18 miles, I'm going to pass by, let's call it 12 dealerships. I can pull up that dealership, and we're working with some software. We're getting close on that to where I can pull them up and do it with automation. But as it is now, I pull up their website, look at their used inventory, sort it by brand, pull up the brands that I have, see if they have any recalls on them. And as I'm driving past them, I can stop at those stores and take care of things, keep them more compliant. I'm building value. Our warranty rate's the highest rate that we have. And I'm building value on the way to our customer. If I get stuck in traffic and I need to pull some of that time back, I can go straight to Ted and then come back and catch those dealers on the way back. There's all kinds of things that we can do to build trip value. But to go out and stare out a windshield, stop at a customer's house, take care of the concern that they called you for, and leave and go to yes, it gets tougher to pencil, but there's so many ways to get creative and build value to where this thing pencils fairly quick. And not only that, but then you reduce your customer acquisition cost, you increase your VIN share, you increase your frequency. There's just so many things that ties to it. And then what we haven't talked about yet with value is when I go to Ted's house and I take care of his car, his next door neighbor with a Nissan Maxima saying, "Hey, what you guys doing? Can you service mine while you're here?" And yes, and that's what that third person can do. They can run a part out while we start the service and go ahead and take care of that while we're there. And guess who that person's coming to when it's time to replace that vehicle? Somebody that they know will come to them with mobile service.
And, Ed, from a Ford perspective, that's, the quick lane model is to own the garage, right? So
Exactly.
you can own the garage on a mobile basis too. When we had tire service, I didn't care if I was going out to change a set of Mercedes tires. I can do your BMW also. So, it's about owning the garage too, and you will grow that. I mean, because you can. So that's another opportunity that I don't think is very well looked at. Just want to touch on one thing that Ed's saying there too. Focused employees also. I found, though, now doing what we're doing from a dealer recommendation standpoint is you have people that focus on this business. If you want it to be successful, you can call it what you want. We have a couple buzzwords that we use, but somebody that's going to be responsible for mobile service and the appointments and the routing and using some of the software that's out there that's great for mobile service, and just it's a business, right? It's a separate business, and you really can't expect your current service manager or fixed operations manager to look outside the dealership and run this. They can oversee it, but you need somebody that's going to be dialed in on it every day if you want it to be successful.
Somebody's got to own it.
Absolutely.
Robert, we got a couple really sharp dealer operators here. But not every dealer operator talks like this, Robert. And, that helps keep Stage One Mobile growing and in business.
Absolutely. The things that popped into mind as they were talking, passion and competency.
Yeah.
And those 2 things are lacking severely in any workplace any longer. It's not just in dealerships. It's kind of everywhere. It's in corporate America. It's everywhere. But like Ed was saying, if you can get the person that's going to be out there to really own that they're a service director, they're the person that this is on. And it does take off a little bit and alleviate some of the pain points of the service director himself. But it's like you have to be able to trust your people that they're going to operate and at a high level and do the things that they need to do. Everyone needs to be Tom Brady. That's the point, is if you can train everybody, get them to a certain level and get them out into the field, I mean, it's a win-win for everybody.
Everyone, great job. We're going to leave it there. Leave the audience wanting more, and there's a lot more. Everybody, if you want to reach out to the best of the best, okay, the A-list of mobile service, they're right here. Mark Mickens, Ed Roberts, Robert Stage. They're all on social media, easy to find, and of course here through the Roundtable as well. I want to thank myKaarma for sponsoring this panel, the mobile service panel. Mark, Ed, and Robert, we're off to a great start. Thank you for all you do for the industry, and I can't wait to see what happens in the next couple of months with mobile and what we come
Thanks,
back and
Ed.
talk about, guys.
Good luck, everybody.
23
Thanks,
is
Ed.
the year.
Appreciate it.
Great job.
That's right.
Everybody, Mark Mickens, Ed Roberts, and Robert Stage here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.